Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to an unknown part of a series in which you take our new to us and pretty much new to the market SCX10.3 Coyote, better known as Tuxedo Dan, because Tuxedo Dan sports a jaunty hat, as he has to. It's part of the thing. Tuxedo Dan is relatively fresh off of the forensics episode where we took stuff apart and looked at things. And this is the installment where Tuxedo Dan answers the question, hey, Tuxedo Dan, would you like $200? So we're going to see about what can we do with our Coyote for around $200. Now, there's going to be creative accounting done here. It is that's not avoidable, because you may be absolutely fine with the SLT2 radio. You might want a Noble NB4. Maybe you're a Futaba 10PX man. I don't know. I am a Radiolink RC4GS man, and I do not count the cost of the radio into any build. It is a cost. There are many people who will run 10 rigs off one radio, maybe more. We have a couple radios in here with 3 or 4 rigs on them each, and other than that, it's one rig, one radio, one Riot, one Ranger. We go Texas Ranger status on radios, and the radio is about $60. I'm not factoring the cost of the radio into that, because maybe you want a Eldark CT01, which is like $40. Maybe you want a Mias 10B, which is like $40. Or you want this one at $60. Or again, like, I can't determine the cost there. What we can do is we can lock down what I would call non-negotiable costs. If we have the LCXU gearbox and AR45P axles, which we do, the only real choice is the Fusion SE, formerly $80, now in the tariff times $100. So that's half of our budget gone already. And it is the thing where if you asked me, if you said you're only allowed to make one change, it's gonna be that. That is the biggest single quality of life improvement, because of the fitted equipments, the Slick Rock 35 and the Spectrum Rebadge 1060 are the worst of the lot. Just found we found the receiver. Also, 100% negotiable, but we do have to factor the cost into it. This is the Amazon Pro, the 32. This one's called the 3245 SG, formerly called the 3235 Pro, the 3245 Pro. This is the Amazon, the famous and or infamous, depending on how you feel about it, Amazon Blue case. Regardless of the day, you're going to get that servo for around $30. I want to say I paid $27.99 for this one. Prices will be basically all over the place, depending on what day you order. But you can be pretty comfortable in spending right about $30 for that. If you want to buy a nicer servo, if you're a Reefs man, if you're NSTRC, if you're AGFRC, if you buy Protex, that is entirely up to you. That is where you're at. What I can tell you is this, though. You can buy a great improvement of performance. You know what I'm doing right now? Okay. You can buy a great improvement in performance over that 2664 by just putting an Amazon Blue case in it. It's not the fastest servo in the world. It's not the torquiest servo in the world, but it will absolutely do the job. There is more than one rig here in the fleet that was initially installed with a 45 kg or even a 35 kg as a sort of placeholder servo, as a servo to where, like, well, until we figure out what we want to do, and then there's just no reason to take it out. It's fast enough for the job. It's torquey enough for the job. There's really no reason to replace it with anything else. So we're at about $130. Taxes don't exist in this universe. Then we must address that thing which needs most dutifully to be addressed, which is the shocks. The shocks are truly surprising in that they are I mean, it seems, on the one hand, it seems a shame to say, the best made shocks Axial has in their current model line. Of what they're selling now, this shock is the best one that they're selling because they made just enough changes that it doesn't leak. The damping feels great. They didn't initiate all new stuff. It still has an 8mm bore, just like the 10 Pro. But it doesn't leak. Then they went full Axial on us, which is, if you didn't see the forensics episode, the front shocks have 1.5 pound per inch springs, and the rear shocks have 2.6 pound per inch springs, filled with the same oil, using the same pistons, and they are all gray springs with red bands, which means Axial now has 3 springs that are the same uncompressed length, the same inner diameter, 3 different rates, all the same color band. I have no idea why anyone would do that. But then at the same time, we have a tire which is marked Proline number 10227, which is the OE Trepador, which is the exact same part number, PL, number sign, 10227, as the G8 Trepador. Why again would you do that? Why is it? It's a different tire. It is very clearly and obviously a different tire. Why would you not announce it as such? So, I have mentioned at some length that this shock's length is wrong. You can, well, I can see right in here. There's the mark from the screw, and there's the mark from the screw. The 100mm shocks that come fitted to the vehicle are in the furthest away and highest hole on the shock tower. That's not great. So we punch the hollow balls out of it because we're going to reuse those hollow balls in some Amazon Chavtex, which were just freshly built on some 40 weight oil. And here's what I can tell you about that. We're going to have to make up a number for what these shocks cost, because I acknowledge that to build these, you need 2 packages of TRA2669 to steal the pistons, and you need 2 packages of TRA2362 to replace all the seals. These are fitted with the springs that come with them, 1.2 pounds per inch, and the other pair have been fitted with Deluxe Softs, 0.8 pounds per inch, and that will cost you about $10 for the springs. I paid $10 for the shocks. They are typically around $12 a pair on any given day, and you need to put the same amount of work into them. You need to add that about $10 a cost, because it effectively transforms them into Traxxas big bores. They don't leak, they're super smooth, they're bladdered, they're great, and they're right around 90mm, which is what I believe the shock length this needs is. So $10 for the shocks, $10 for the seals, $10 for the pair of springs. So realistically, around $30, right? We have some fudge room, because the only other thing that is going on here in our $200 budget, because we definitely do not have to replace the body. We don't have to replace the RTR tire. We don't even have to replace the RTR insert, so long as you put the work into it. But I wasn't going to bother Cobra fabbling it together, because I kind of don't need to. I have a rack of Canyon Customs, which are built in the exact same fashion. I mean, this is what I build out of fridge foam and a solid core inner. I'm basically doing the same thing. To fix this, I've shown it 2 or 3 times now. I would take a wrap of fridge foam, I would cut it to the length, just insert it together inside that, and now you have an insert that fits a Trepador, which is slightly taller than normal. So that is what I did with mine, and then I spent a little extra on the budget. My first temptation was, I have a couple options in the beadlock drawer, and option number 1 was these. But matching color straight to color never really works. Like, it's okay. It's close, but I would rather not put blue on blue. I'd rather like put blue on a white truck or a black truck. So the reason that the trials were up at the top of the list is they're a little heavier than typically what you'll get. The offset is just about perfect to fit this vehicle. And they were inexplicably on sale on Amazon for $20 for the set of 4. But I didn't like the blue on blue. It felt like blue on blue crime. So I went with a wheel that I felt is befitting of Tuxedo Dan, which is Injora Chrome. I paid $33.99 a set for these, which is fairly typical. You can get, outside of Amazon, you can get yourself sub $20 for a full set of 4. But this wasn't an instance where it was about pure extreme budget it all the way down. I saw a rim and went, oh, yeah, that's the rim. They were actually already here. Everything here was already here. So I didn't have to order anything because, as has been pointed out by at the very least gruntled, I don't know, maybe disgruntled, you just do the same thing. You just put a Fusion in it, and then you put a Radiolink radio on it, and I'm surprised it doesn't have J-Concepts tires on it already. This guy is going to be something of a project. Now, the first thing we have to do is attach the shocks because it's double shear. And if we don't attach these, all the suspension links are going to keep trying to fall out. So we should be, I am going to go 1 hole forward and 1 hole down on the shock tower. And that's going to be our guess assembly hole, because this shock is about 7 millimeters, between 6 and 7 millimeters shorter than the shock that was fitted here as it came from the factory. We have to make sure blue band in the front, no band in the rear, and we just drop them in because we're reusing the same hollow balls. I have said it in another video, and I'll say it again in this video. Those Coyote shocks are gonna get used. I have rigs here that are 100 millimeter shock rigs, and we still have, I did a little short running tally, we still have a number less than 5 of rigs still running axial shocks, and my goal is to de-leak or replace all of them. And I can easily find one of the axial Capra length sets and replace those with the Coyote shocks, because I know I don't have to deal with them, and they fit tiny springs. I don't know why I like the tiny springs more. It just, we're going to do the same thing in the rear, lower hole, 1 hole back. So second hole, bottom row, and then we will see how that feels, because we're not making a huge change in terms of length. One might say, well, what about the 3-link in the front end? What about the panhard? What is the panhard gonna, how is it gonna react to having its shock swapped out? Well, we're going shorter, so we are inside the existing swing, so it shouldn't be a problem. There is many a vehicle out there who is actually happier on a shock 5 millimeters shorter than the one that it is fitted with. The Vanquish Phoenix is the first one that springs to mind. Comes on 90s Portal. Straight axle. The straight axle comes on 90s. Fordyce as well. And I genuinely believe they're happier on 85s. That 5 millimeters can make a big difference. So we're going down just over 5 millimeters on these. We are also going down in rate on the shocks, about 1 full rate at each end. So, curiously, and I think worthy of note, the 100 mils the ones we pulled off, these guys right here, 97 eye to eye, and then they compressed to 69. And these were about 91.5 and also compressed to 69. So we've basically just lost linearly. Both the up travel and total shock length have both been reduced. Now, because we are 5 millimeters lower on the hole, our full droop will be about the same as it was on these. And if we want more up travel, we can go up to the top row and lower the vehicle down even more. By going to a shorter shock, what we have done is given ourselves more options in terms of shock mounting position. And all those holes in the towers are indeed there for a reason. And that reason is to give us shock mounting options. It's just that when you fit them with a 100 millimeter shock, you take those options away because you have nowhere to go other than in the direction of making the vehicle taller. I don't want the vehicle to be taller because on a tire that is basically 5 inches tall, 4 3/16, we want to go the other way. Now, with the battery tray and the speed control, maybe we can... Let's see what type of tape they used. Is it the black kind of tape or the white kind of tape? Either way, it's going to fight me. It's clear tape or no tape. Wotech from Amazon is the choice, is always the choice. I'm on like my third roll of it. That is, it's the black. It's really on there. But it's not going back on, so... Just need a little, ooh, stick to it. That stuff never comes off clean. In the same situation, under the 515. That guy off it there. Yeah, it took the, yeah, that sticker on the bottom. That sticker never lives in the face of that tape. But these will have run one run of the stock electronics. Let's see, how does this route? Over, under. Slide this back. We'll just let that drive shaft fall apart because we got to remove the gear cover. We got to pull the okay, it's a little captive. Let's find out how he's captive. That's important to know. I don't know. I kind of like this stretchy traction board. At least somebody's giving us an option, and we don't have to dig up a Velcro. Oh, there we go. It's got a nice little. It's got a little wire routing groove in the bottom of the battery tray, much like you would see on the bottom of a toaster. So we'll get this detached and throw it in the pile of other 2664s. Now that we have gotten rid of 23 spline, there's really no appreciable difference between the OE from Axial and the OE from basically anybody else. Like Reedy 1523, Traxxas 2075, all of them. They're giving you that same minimum level of stock torque. It's enough to turn the things. We are 1456. Nice perfect 4-to-1. They have now gone to a oh, pardon me. They have now gone to a black plate on the front of the slipper eliminator. That is the first vehicle I have seen to come fitted with that. That plate is usually natural. I don't know if that was explicitly necessary. We never see that part. And then we pop this out, and then we are, because we are doing the $200 episode. Oh yeah, yeah! Somebody put the head, the shoulders, the knees, and toes to that, and then we gotta Yeah, buddy. Not just a little bit of thread lock. And then what we do is we make a little pile right over here. And we'll move these on down the line to somebody. We'll find somebody who needs, they'll be like, my nephew, and I'll be like, say less, and we'll send it off to them. Look how small the LCXU gets. I mean, the biggest individual part of the LCXU is this absurd gear cover, which grows increasingly absurd when you find out that it's invisible there. See the little cut to clear the drive shaft? I don't think anything's getting in there. I just don't like gear covers, particularly when we're talking about 32 pitch gears. There's no real reason. You don't gotta. You can remove the gear cover. We didn't frequently run gear covers back in the Go Fast days. We're certainly not running them now. Not unless we have to. If there's a wire right there, then yes. Also, worthy of note, they definitely greased the spur in here, which explains why it was so quiet out of the box. And we've got these big flathead guys, the load spreader servo screws. They are M3x8s, and they are just a little bit too long for the little shallow pockets in a Fusion SE. So I will replace them with some slightly shorter screws. Your screw, your choice. It's not critical. It just needs not to be of a length that is making you try to cram the thing together. I like a flathead with the little decorative washer. I like these. It spreads the load out. It looks good. You can accomplish the same thing with an M3x6 and a flat washer. You can do it. You can do it a lot of ways. This is the way I'm going to do it because I wanna. Now, the no gear cover thing is a thing that I somewhat commit to, but I typically wax my spur and pinion, and this is definitely greased. So we may end up running that gear cover anyway. Because this looks like a silicone or lithium based grease, one or the other. It is going to pick up and carry with it everything. It's a pretty good gear mesh right there. I don't feel like, you know what? Yeah. I don't feel like gunking it. We could get it even quieter. If you have a vehicle that is somewhat chatty and you can tell that the sound is mechanical and not electronic, if simply removing the gear cover is going to bring the noise level down pretty significantly. Come on. There we go. It is a good fitting gear cover in spite of its size, and I would rather have it be too big than like an element cover where when you change it to another pinion it goes, no, I don't no, that's, you must be thinking of someone else, because I'm not going to go back together with that pinion gear on there. So this, I believe, because the opening is so large, I believe would fit most anything. We are going to blind hope that I got that thing phased. It felt right. It felt right in the moment. I also like that on this skid, I'm not a huge fan of Axial going to a new skid protocol every time they release a new gearbox. We know that they could have just done the bottom of this thing in the standard 4-bolt pattern of a 3-gear, and that would have been great. But I do appreciate that this one has it's got little plastic nibs on the bottom of the gearbox that nest into little receptacles in the skid. So it kind of really positions itself together. I'm not mad at that. I can take time out to be mad at other things. but failures in design, that is not one of them. It is a choice, and they keep making different choices. I don't know how many overlaps there are. I don't know if there are many axial gearboxes that can mount up to other axial things, because they just keep changing it over and over again. Yeah, slightly longer. Same screw, but longer. That is the motor holders. These are definitely M3x10s. And one, there he is. I'm going to slap a blue case in here, and it will take a quick moment. I do want to see one thing, and this will be for us all to see. Yeah, good. You want to be able to optimally reach at least one of the screws so that you can pull the servo out without having to, like, disconnect a link and swing the... Nope. These people like their thread lock. We are going to get this one started. Get that one started by hand. Traxxas is one that jumps out to me, TRX4 specifically. Both screws on the servo just perfectly obscured above the axle. Okay, so we get everything thrown back in. We do the wiring like the quasi-temporary. There's 2 zip ties on here. I realized after getting everything clocked and wired, probably would have been better. And again, we will fallaciously assume that the future will occur. We could have turned the motor that way, just run the wire up. The receiver will actually fit right there. You know, move that little bit of way forward. It really makes me want to put a mini winch in there, but I would have to go into an RC6 because I like an RC6 for a winch. I can always convert this into an RC6. You can do it for about $15. Anyway, issues. Yes. Axial, in an attempt to get drag link and panhard bar parallel, both in terms this way, and equal in length. You want them to be as equal in length as possible. In an attempt to do that, they have pushed this servo to the point where there's a cutout in the shock tower to clear the servo. That servo is physically as we see shiny, physically as far as it can go that way. So, because the gear train height is higher on this, you can't get it all the way down because it will bottom out on the frame rail and the servo will kind of rock. Those are, geez, are they 3s? They look like 2s. Those are 2s. Those are M3x2 spacers. There's 2 on the front and 2 on the back. So it effectively spaces the servo up 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters is perfectly acceptable and doesn't interfere with anything because the servo horn clears just fine. You could go up even a little more and it would still clear the rail, but I would say 2 millimeters is safe. And because the servo moved up 2 millimeters, I had to lengthen. I just dialed out you can see a little bit of thread at each end. I just dialed out the drag link so that the axle is roughly straight where it is, because also the spline on the horn and the spline, it's kicked out a little bit. So my dodgy way of getting there, what did that net us? Well, now the panhard and the drag link are effectively the same length. They're within 1/2 of a millimeter of each other. And as I dialed this thing out I did about 2 millimeters on that end and about 1 millimeter on that end. It would seem to me that the drag link and panhard would have been about 3 millimeters, just over 3 millimeters in difference between the two. You could now, this is little fiddly stuff that if you don't want to get involved in it, welcome to chassis mounted steering and 3-link with panhard. You can add a spacer under this, but we are so parallel that I can completely obscure the panhard link. There it is. They are perfectly parallel, and they remain roughly parallel through the swing because all of the crinkle in this guy is on another plane. So they used an offset end to help clear. It's kind of hodgy-bodgy, but it is definitely better than the old RTR base camp. I still believe that this front end geometry is a bit more suited to the panhard placement of the straight axle. The AR-45P and the AR-45 put the panhard mount in a different position. So let us mount up the tires. And I think that even with a little bit of creative accounting, want to see the drive shaft move, yeah, because the shallow hexes, we don't want to bottom out the SLW hub into the portal box, and that is a common concern with the super thin, designed for plastic wheel hexes that Axial has long used. As I look at this thing now, and as much as I love the look of these wheels, looking at his wheel track, I continue to feel like this might be a -10 truck. It needs a deep on it. Now, fortunately, I have a set of deeps that I think might suit. This might just be fine. You know, Canyon Custom Softs in there with an extra little half wrap to fully fill the Trepidor. A wheel that definitely looks the part. The question is, we're right there. Like 246, 247. Absolutely acceptable. Honestly, according to math says we should have lost about 5 millimeters of total articulation. It feels about the same amount of articulation that we had on the hundreds, but we are sitting quite a good bit lower, and 0.8s in the front, not bottoming out. Oh, we gotta put Tuxedo Dan on here. Okay, that basically closes out the fronts, but the rears, 1.2 on the bench is oversprung for the rear. So I would honestly, much as I like that hijacker look, we're gonna go, barring changing springs, we're just going to move forward and attempt to soften, lower the effective rate slightly, and lower the ride height slightly. We have full travel, both ends. Front is right about bottoming out. We don't need a ton of front up travel. That's better. I would honestly, see, I'm appreciating the toolless, just pop a body off. You know what I'm thinking? Okay, note to self. Nope, no note to self. This screw is a 20. If you attempt to install that 20 in a forward hole, you will put the screw into the side of the servo. So we need to go down to an 18 for that. And I'm going to go to the next to forward lowermost hole, which will very slightly raise the effective rate. Now this side is not going to matter. That's a lot of screw in there. And there. Let's get her sitting right, sitting tight. There it is. There it is. We've got dead level link in the front, and then because we've got high clearance in the rear, we've got maybe 5 degrees of attitude up on the link as it comes back down. We have about 95 millimeters in the rear, and because the fronts are stood up straighter, we've got about 100 in the front. We got about 5 millimeters more. So it is in the, baked into the geometry. We are reasonably low travel. I consider anything with articulation less than the height of the tire to be low travel. And there's nothing explicitly wrong with low travel. I think 0.8, 1.2 is going to be really close. We were 2354 stock, I believe, without a battery. I will know. Yes, it was slider plus electronics plus wheels plus tires. Okay. So let us momentarily extract the power source. Slap this back together. We'll just get you a rough weight, because we should have picked up about 250 or so. 2585. So we picked up 230. 230. And basically, I would say all 6120. About just over half of that is wheel and tire. Well, is wheel. Shocks might pick up a little bit. Anyway, we picked up 230 grams. So instead of 5.21, we're now sitting at 5.699, 5.7 pounds. That's not exactly overwhelmingly heavy. And the amount of weight that we've added is effectively unsprung. Have we added anything that would add sprung weight? It's not. Why doesn't it move? Oh, man. The resistance between that battery and the speed control has to be really high, really high. So how did I liked it like this. I realize now, after routing the wire through the little toaster routing underneath, I could have tightened this battery tray up, because this thing will be running 3S 2200s exclusively. Could also, don't know if it'll fit, but we will probably find out, could go up in spur and down in pinion, as I think. It's not awful. And it's a Fusion, so we can go low. Yeah, right through there. Yeah, that's still touching in the rear. That's, you know what? That's pretty good. It doesn't always have to be some kind of Flex Friday. We're going to have zero Lexan noise. We can just kind of touch. That is $200 thrown at this. And again, I could argue that the radio, which was not figured in the cost, is user preference. Plenty of people use plenty of different radios. There's plenty of people out here with Fly Sky G7Ps and G4Ps and GP7. Anyway, those are god-awful, terrible radios. Absolutely terrible. With little to no redeeming value. And to me, ergonomically, as a person who's holding a radio at some point every day, I have had Radiolink RC4s and RC6s in my hand for thousands upon thousands of hours, to where this one is reasonably new. It's reasonably new, but it has been used. It's been in a vehicle before. And then when we have one that has literally thousands of hours and has been polished to a mirror finish, that falls into my hand. I've held these for so long. They are familiar. This radio has been dropped so many times. I've probably dropped this radio 100 times, and it keeps on keeping on. So, we're going to go to the rocks, and we're going to see. And what I'm thinking is this guy is going to undergo a bit of a test and tune over time, where we're going to see what is it like, what is it not like. I've noticed in the times driving it up till now that I'm not even really that mad at the AR45Ps, and they are one of my least favorite axles. They're almost certainly my least favorite portal axle. I mean, of a manufacturer. We're not talking about the that which rhymes with dead rat. So, out to the rocks, mush it around, hit a couple lines with it, see how that weight balance feels, because we didn't put, I don't regard anything we did as unnecessary. It needed a shorter shock because it could not, in any configuration, sit down like this one. I'm just looking at level links in the front. It still has a little bit of a nose down attitude. I feel like, is there room? Not really. Top of that shock is basically on the bed. You have to cut out for offset caps, maybe? Oh, does this thing need fake K&Ks from AliExpress? Maybe. The front weight feels good. When you do that lift, you feel it pushing back against you. That's Geo. I'm not mad at it. And you could get to right here, ignoring that, for $5.50 or less. Because I've seen coupons eligible and stuff goes on sale all the time. There's nothing exotic. You gotta put in a little bit of work. If you don't want to put in the work, I've mentioned it before. Imagine that speedometer, and on one side it has labor, and on the other side it has cost. And you can build a shock. You can build a full set of shocks for under $30 that will do this when you set them down, just by putting in the time. Or you can go to the retailer of your choice and buy whatever fancy shock that you like. $34 is about as expensive as I would go on here with the, God, I hope this like high 240s, just under 250 track does the trick, because those tires look the trick with his chapeau. So, Tuxedo Dan is, we could call him around $500, $350 for the RTR. I will make a trade. I will trade someone, probably on a live stream. I will trade someone all of this, including the $80 receiver, for like another one of those Amazon Blue cases, to so that we have one for the next build that goes together, because I'll probably eventually replace that servo because I want to. I don't need to. It's wants over needs. It'll probably be something direct power, something faster. We're going to go through some approaches with this guy and see where we end up, because I want to keep him as this C-channel platform, kind of as he is. I want to keep him the core of a Coyote, and we'll see where he ends up. Right now, he's going to end up right out there on the rocks, and we're going to see how he does after we threw $200 at him. And this might be one of the very few instances where we'll ever see this happen. This vehicle had parts installed, and he helped us out because we didn't immediately have to replace the tires. I'd call it about 65, 18, 85 out here. Nice, cool, overcast early morning. Sun's going to break through during the day, but it's not going to get super hot. It's going to be a pretty nice day. We're here at a really good time for it. Do I have concerns about our $200 investment? Well, the 1800 is spicy. You could really get away with a 1200, I think, even with that amount of gear reduction. Now, if you're using it for very mixed, and don't forget, it is a Fusion, so it's not like we can't go real slow. And sound output wise, the Fusion is silent compared to that Slick Rock. So we can keep it low. Trigger tension feels fine. I'm not having to give it too much. I was like, will the softs be a little over firm? I am trying to keep that throttle input as slow as I can put it. Look at that. Did you see it? Bear witness. What? Oh, it's suspension. It's suspension that works. It is, okay, the thing that I'm least happy with about the Coyote is the glue-ons. But again, as I mentioned, we can't fault them. That's a very easy cost-saving measure. And I will go so far as to say, I think the glue-ons are offset by the fact that these tires, again, really quite good. So I don't mind heat gunning them off. I heat gun tires off all the time. The shocks are such an improvement that plastic bodies, let's ignore the plastic bodies, and I would say use the same approach for your other shocks. And then as I say that, I'm like, what does what does Axial even have in a 90? Element mono specs. They have a 90 millimeter shock. They make it in a plastic body, a clear anodized or natural body, and then the gold factory team body. Axial makes, oh goodness, now that we include what we're going to just have to call the Coyote shock, Axial makes like at least a dozen different shocks in a dozen different lengths, configurations, spring lengths, spring sizes. There's no standardization. Look, our turning circle. Because we can't muscle the servo out of the way. It might have cost $28. Now see, we are as low. That's really low on the throttle input. Because I want to see where those tires can catch. We give it any decent amount more throttle. Again, my worry of the Trepador was, I believe that we are at the very bottom end of generated weight for the Trepador to function as intended. Honestly, I think the rig needs to weigh about another pound, and I don't know where we're gonna, well, the giant deluxe Capra weights would put on, I want to say they're like 360, 370 grams for the pair. So that get us pretty close to throwing on another pound. Do I think that it needs it though? So we cut the spring rates by half. They made a shock that works and then made two more red band springs that are different rate. Axial. Do you understand what is the purpose of putting the colored band on the shock? It's to tell people what the rate is. They now have at least 3 gray coil red band shocks that are all different rates. I can't think of anyone else that's done that. We got real wide. Ooh. Okay, I think maybe because of the tire height, because of the portal, I think we could maybe get away with a little bit more weight in the front. But I honestly don't think we need a deluxe amount of weight in the front. We get to right there. Oh, there, got it over it. When in doubt, throttle out, and we lost an absolutely minimum amount of ground clearance, and we only lost it in the middle, because look how nice and flat Tuxedo Dan sits now. The clearance, obviously, you're not changing the clearance at the diff, at the pumpkin, unless you change the tire, and we didn't. This tire will not sit as well. Maybe we did. We don't have sloppy bago, ill-fitting foams flopping around in there. The more I think about it, the more I sit back and I think about it, the more I want to cut some fridge foam and turn those into a dual triple stage to see how they do function. And seeing as we went through all the heat gun work, it's not that difficult to remove the tire. It's just nice to see suspension in action. See, that right there, this right here, that's TREP stuff. Whatever they're calling this compound, whatever the Proline OE compound turns out to be, and one would have to assume they didn't call the chemists, that like they weren't like, make it. They pulled a compound that they already use for something else. Whatever that compound is, if it's new, if it's something borrowed or something blue, whatever it might be, make more tires in this. This should be slotted right in there with G8 and Predator. G8 is your long-wearing Michelin 800 treadwear compound. Predator is your aggressive, fast-wearing, cold weather specific, not an also like it's your Bridgestone Blizzak. It's your winter tire. And then here we've got your, what I'm hoping is all seasons. It has only been operated in the cool of the morn, but so far it has been great, despite being a Trepador, which a Trepador has pretty specific requests. So, glue-ons, shocks that don't fit the vehicle, springs that are certainly not suited to the vehicle. All of those things aside, this is nevertheless a wholesale improvement over the base camp. So we have to regard the Coyote as its own model. There's the 10.3, the other one, the JLU, and the one they make a Gladiator out of. There's the 10.3 base camp, and now there's the 10.3 Coyote, which is a god-awful and ridiculous naming structure, but one that we should be not surprised at all by, from a company that made 3 different rates of shocks that are all exactly the same color, and the only way you can tell the difference is by rating them and making a little chart. I have the most questions that are not cost-saving related. The lead number of my questions is, and we're going to phrase this as a question, Trepador? I cannot understand why. But as I mentioned before, why is there a Nitto Trail Grappler on a Capra? Like, this is not the tire for this vehicle. The compound and the car, this accumulation, the 3 C's, this works better than anything anything excluding the ripsaw. And the 1.9 ripsaw is basically a class 1. So this tire, to me, 4 axial RTRs, stands on its own. It is the first axial. My time in the toy cars that go slow is predated by the axial ripsaw. So I never bought a vehicle that came with a ripsaw. And now they're largely discontinued, so I'm getting like new old stock ones. I have a couple sets in rotation in the fleet. and have to decide what those will be replaced with when they are worn out. So for me, under the auspices of the Canyon, this is the first axial provided tire not immediately discarded. So this is as close as axial has gotten to something like the TRX4 Sport. Can it? Can it? I'm telling you, I think the hat helps. The 1800, it feels really spicy. I would honestly probably, without changing the gearing, no, I would change the gearing. I would, instead of spending $100 on, oh man, remember the glory days when they were 80 bucks? Instead of spending $100 on an SE1800, I would spend $90 on an SE1200 and go up 3 teeth on the pinion. Yeah, go up to a 17. If a 17 will fit. We'll find out. We'll find out at some point. Because we're going to tinker. We don't know how to stop ourselves from tinkering. This tire does far better. When it said that the new Axial Coyote, and I scoffed at that notion. I was like, oh great, another new 10.3. But no, it's different enough from a base camp that it is something more akin to the same platform sharing that went on. Is there less in common with a base camp here than there is with, say, 10.3 JLU in a base camp? They are familially related, like they all have the same rails essentially, but different. There's the same gearbox in this, but not in the JLU. I don't know. So we distinctly have the JLU, the base camp, and the Coyote. And the Coyote is the best of the three, unquestionably, because they made those quality of life improvements, smoothing out the bottom. It's not, okay, if you just want to go out and slay lines, bro, this out of the box is not that. I can live in my own dichotomy of the 10.3 Coyote is enough of an improvement over the previous iterations of the 10.3 platform to be like, yeah, this is pretty good. But at the same time, I can also acknowledge, if you want to build performance, if performance is all you want, we're sitting at about $500 here, and I try to think, where could you beat it? You'd build up a Mias Gold Rush from the ground up, not have to worry about discarding RTR parts. You would pick a tire that you're more inclined to pick, put a similar body on it, and you'd probably come out around the same money, maybe a little higher on the Gold Rush, but you'd be a little better equipped. I guess we're going to have to do Gold Rush versus Coyote. The Coyote does have more of a turnkey aspect to it. You don't really have to build anything. You can run it as it comes out of the box, and it is not disappointing. And then I saw the spirit of the forest. And then you just bolt some parts on, and you're pretty good. This is, like, right, we can do this. We just go. Did not get upset. Didn't get upset. It feels quite good. It doesn't feel so good that it makes me go, oh, I had forgotten there are C channels under there. No, this is a medium-low travel, really high clearance, and my course is sort of biased a little bit towards higher clearance. We began on portals, and a lot of the obstacles around here were designed with portals in mind. So there's an advantage to being portaled. And then you pair that portal with a near 5-inch tall tire, and you've got a lot of clearance. It doesn't feel, well, let me see if I change my tune. Really helped out by the suspension there. It doesn't feel as tall as it is, and the jaunty chapeau does make it look taller than it is. So then you feel like you're doing even more. I have for some long time now preached from the pulpit of the church of the anti-RTR, where I don't want people to buy RTRs ultimately, because I think it's a stop on a journey, and you're eventually going to get to the point where you've just determined you want to build what you want. But as has been pointed out to me by more than one person, the RTR is almost a necessary part of the journey. Everybody's got to have an RTR at some point to find out why I don't like RTRs, which is, for everything Axial did right with the Coyote, they absolutely did another wrong thing. And this is ignoring the typical run-of-the-mill garbage RTR electronics. When you get an RTR, you just expect the electronics to be subpar or poor, right? Element is currently offering the very worst in RTR electronics. G4Ps, SC480Xs, and Reedy crawlers. Oh, God. I would take the SLT2 and... Wait. Let's see where he goes. So majestical. So majestical. I would and will take the SLT2 and the Slick Rock 35 turn and a Rebadge 1060 over what Element is offering. Traxxas is still giving the best, and by best, you know, that is a very conditional statement, the 2075 and a TQI, or TQ. We're going to lift. We're going to overcompress a little bit. Look how in control we can stay, though. Yeah, he needs a little bit. Not like the full deluxe front. And I would like to point out, the hat absolutely helps. Because through here, absolutely solid. It's not even full. Like, look at the attitude of the body. We're not even fully swinging the body over and compressing the low side spring in the rear. And don't forget that we're 0.8 in the front and 1.2 in the back. Formerly 1.5 in the front and 2.6 in the back. I do not know what those springs were for, unless there was some intention to fit the Coyote with a completely different body that weighs 3 times what this one does. Yeah, a blue case is often enough. Ooh, right there. Get around it. Yup. We put no brass. There's no brass. We went from 120 grams a corner on the plastic to 184. So I was thinking about it during transition, and that is 64, 128, 256 grams of added weight just from wheel and tire. But it added it equally to every corner. We could definitely get away with a pair of brass rings in the front wheels. That would probably be the cheapest way to do it. It's not the best, but at 5.7 pounds, that servo can handle another 100-ish grams at the front. And the 1800, certainly if you're on an 1800, will have no issues handling that additional weight. So we might as well. Now, this was not designed for portals. This was designed for good weight split, sprung to unsprung. There is a point, there is a determined point where you can feel the traction just kind of drop away. They go just fine. We go da 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 da, easy. Come up across this little lip there, no problem. There we go. Over that, splitting that torque. We get up to right about here, and it's perfectly right there in the wheelbase. Now we've transferred that weight onto the rear. We can't keep the front down. We'll try sidling it. Ain't nothing wrong with a paper boy. There we go. And if you don't have to use big throttle inputs to get where you want, then it's doing it okay. Turning circle is as good as I've seen with an AR-45P, simply by adding a blue case. This is not advised. The hat, no! No, not the hat. Okay, we're gonna have to build the hat stronger and better, because it tore the hat. Oh, this is a sad day. I knew it was unwise, but we did it anyway. Now he's just got a black dot on the roof. Well, he must be repaired and he must be built stronger. I think that one of the best and worst aspects of the 10.3 Coyote is the tires. They gave us this OE Trepador, better than any Trepador we've seen previously. But no one can convince me that this tire fits this vehicle. It still looks basically Traxxas High Trail tall. It doesn't need the additional clearance of the taller tire. Like when we're getting right in here and we're falling back, it's just, we're so high off the ground. We're so high off the ground. You could, like a 4.5, a canyon trail, a deep woods, something. It's killing the side hill. You've got to be really, there's a lot of traction in it. It just, if this came fitted with a straight axle, if this had 10 Pro straights or AR-45 straights, if this had the axles from the base camp kit in place of these portals, the Trepadors would be out. I believe these Trepadors would be outstanding. So this guy, and by extension his, geez, I don't know, would we call him a brother? Would we call him a cousin? We have a base camp RTR here that has never really sung the song after going through all the work to get it to where it is now. We're gonna have to do some stuff. We are gonna take two 10.3s, a base camp and a Coyote, and somehow we're going to get, they may form like Voltron. They may do a merger here. We might come out of this with one vehicle that works, because this is not the tire for this vehicle. It's too big. It needs to be on a straight axle. We have the thing that I genuinely look forward to, which is our work laid out for us. We definitely have more stuff to do. His cousin has a dig unit installed. I would probably just pull the whole gearbox and dig unit out of that one and plug it into this one. Right there. The tires are too tall They are the best and the worst of the Coyote in that they are a good trepador, but they are not the tire for a vehicle that weighs 5.7 pounds and is on portals. Okay, we're not getting out of that. So you know what you are getting out of this? Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We have to go back inside and reattach his hat. Is that worth the expenditure? Yeah, it drives really nicely. I'm sort of developing this theory of if you have to buy an RTR on the market today, it's kind of this one, because it definitely did more right than it did wrong, I think. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you in the next one, and in between now and when we meet again, please one and all do your very best. Have a good one, everybody. This one ran a little long, but sometimes we do that around here. Thanks. We'll see you in the next one here from the canyon, and in that one, who knows what this guy will look like.